Hello and welcome to today's artist takeover on behalf of Artcore. I am the artist for today. They asked me to do a hashtag, so here we go. This is today's artist takeover. And yes, I'm Connie Burley. I'm a theatre designer and artist, and thank you for joining me. I've not done one of these before, so we shall see how it goes. And any questions, feel free to ask. But I'll just start talking a bit about what I do. So I am a theatre designer based in the East Midlands. I'm from Derby, and I trained at Nottingham Trent University, which was fantastic. I graduated from there about 4 years ago, and it was just a lovely. Oh, hey, Izzy! It was just a lovely course full of wonderful people, and the enthusiasm was catching. And I learned how to become a theatre designer there, really, and what you needed to do. And then when I got out into the big wide world, just started trying to grow my own business and work as a freelance artist, really, in the arts industry. I've got a few things to show you. So this is from a project about 2 years ago. This is part of a model box. It is a Series 1 Land Rover Minerva. And in theatre design, before you make the set, you make a model box. So you make everything, normally 1 to 25 scale, and you make it a bit like an architectural model. So you make the whole thing to see exactly what it's going to look like, so you can change your mind if you don't think it looks right, and then not to be massive consequences of building a massive thing you've only made it out of cardboard. So this piece of model took 4 days to make and 4 minutes to cut from the model box in a meeting, but it was okay because I've kept it and I can use it now to show you a little bit about model making. So these tyres here are actually made out of kitchen roll, would you believe? And there's some tiny little bolts on there, and they are tiny little beads. And the detail you go into when you're creating a model, you have to be really precise, because if you pass it on to a scenic art department and say there was a blob of glue right here, they would replicate that blob of glue. They just make it exactly as you've made it in the model and make it 25 times bigger. But it's a really nice part of the process, making the model, because you create this world, miniature world, and you have to imagine, is this the right world for the play? Is this the right set? Can we do what we want to do on this set? Sometimes rakes are too high, sometimes the colours don't work, and it's really good to see how you can change something and make it perfect before you actually go on to do the technical drawings and then make it. But you use all sorts for models, like these little windscreen wiper bits here. They're actually hair grips. I don't know if you can tell, but they do the job. They do the job. Another. Oh, thank you for the comments. Another company I collaborate with is called Bamboozle Theatre Company. They are an absolutely fantastic theatre company, and they make sensory theatre for young people with multiple disabilities and their families. And we do projects where we do residencies, where we create a sensory world for the families to enter, and we create the story around them. And then also make shows that go on tour to different schools and centres. They're just a fantastic company, and if you have time, go check out their work. They are called Bamboozle, and they have a website and Instagram page. So working with Bamboozle, I work with Sue Pycroft, who's the artistic director there, and she also gets other puppetry based projects in. One project I did last year with her was called The Pearl of Life, and I've got a piece of puppet. I mean, this is one fish. We ended up making 22 or 23 fishes. They're all hand carved out of foam, so they're really lightweight, and this was part of a larger shoal of fish. And we attached them to a fishing net, which was attached then to a fishing rod, which we then weighted each piece and attached them on in a very certain way, so they all moved at the same time, and the puppeteer only had to hold the fishing rod, and all the fish would swim at the same angle at the same moment, so it looked like a shoal of fish sweeping through the air. And I got this fish as a present from Sue afterwards. It didn't make it onto the net, and I keep it as a little memento. And a bit about this: made out of foam, and the fins are fabric pleated with glue and then painted into, as is the tail, so you needed to keep the flexibility but have a fish-like structure to it, I suppose. And then these fins are left as fabric, so when they move, they've got a bit of movement in them. And this is made out of really fine fabric, almost like tissue paper, and pleated for the fins. It's based on a real fish. I've forgotten what the fish was called, but a lot of work went into this. And painting them, they started off as blue foam. Painting them took quite a few layers, and to get the scales, as there were 22 fish, and so that'd be like 44 sides of fish to paint, it would be impossible to paint every single scale. It would take too long, and we didn't have a lot of time to do all of these. So to get this effect, I used gauze, and used it as a sort of I don't know what the word is, template, no, and dabbed through, and then you got the effect of the scales once you peeled it off. Stencil, that's the word I was looking for. It's amazing what you forget when you're sat in front of a camera. And so we did many puppets. I haven't got the big ones to show you, and they all went off to Qatar, and unfortunately they didn't photograph the show, but I'm really proud of the puppets, so I'll keep that fish as a memento. So other things I have worked on, I've worked on small touring shows. I mean, I'm still only 3 years into my career, so I've been assisting on bigger shows and doing my own thing on smaller shows, and one day I'll get there, one day I'll work my way up, but it's a slow process. But I've got a couple of sketchbooks I can show you if you're interested. So here's, some of them aren't very interesting, some more interesting than others. So this sketchbook was for a show called Soapbox Racer, written by Ben Schwartz. And this is a little breakdown of the script. And before designing a show, I normally do a breakdown of what happens in each scene, which character is present, and what props are needed. And then as we go through the process, I can then add to it in the rehearsal room to know where that character is on the stage. And once I've done the design, I get to know where they are on the stage, what they will need, where that prop will need to be before that scene so they can access it, all these little things to think about. But before designing costumes, think about the characters. So this is a little bit of an exploration of character, just sitting down with the director and writer and exploring each character just to really get to know them, because that's what you need to do when you're designing for somebody who's just been invented. So this is a little mood board that I made before designing this show. Oh, thank you, Dawn. Here's some. I do this quite a bit when it's quite simple, really. I just put the name of the character and then I put all the words I can think of to describe them around it, and that just helps me when I'm looking for visual influences. It helps me to pick up on that, and then I go into building a bigger mood board of images. So some of these are just scribbles, really quick scribbles I did in the rehearsal room. And I'll just sit there alongside the director and the writer and the lighting designer, sound designer, and I'll be there just. We work as a team and a collaboration, and we create together, so we're all feeding off each other all the time and bouncing ideas around all the time, which is one of the most exciting things about theatre design, I think, when you're creating something, is working with lots of people, lots of really interesting creative people, and all coming up with something together, because something you thought of might spark off another idea, which in turn might spark off another idea. One thing I really like to do whilst designing is listening to the soundscape of the world of the play, because that quite often feeds into the feeling of the space and the characters, and music carries a lot of emotion. And when you're thinking about what you want to portray and what you want the audience to experience, the music really helps. Even if it's not music, even if it's just the soundscape, I like to listen to it whilst I'm drawing, just having a quick look. There's some really quick scribbles that aren't fantastic, but I think when you're in the moment and you're just sketching along, you have to be really quick, and you're just noting things down, things that you think, oh, that was a really good moment, maybe we could make something of that, and we could enhance that through the design. So these are just some really little quick sketches. So this tiny little sketch came from a moment playing around in the rehearsal room, and it then became one of the moments in the play which stuck into my mind for design purposes. And this is a quick unfinished, because it's not coloured in, sketch of the costume. I did this in the rehearsal room. just trying. This came after looking at all those words and mood board pictures of the character. There's a lot of to-do lists in this sketchbook. But if you want to have a look at the images of the finished play, if you look at Instagram #soapboxracer, they should come up. And it was such an interesting process creating that show, because we didn't have very long to work on it, but we had many discussions over coffee beforehand and what it could be, and it was really great to work with Louisa Sanfi, who was the director, who was absolutely brilliant, and we also worked with Ben Schwartz, who was the writer, who created it and changed things along the way. We found out that during it, parts of it worked, parts of it didn't, so it shifted shape quite a few times, and hopefully we will tour it again when the world is open again. So trying to think of some more. Any questions about what you want to know? I could talk about some of my influences. So before I went to uni, I really did. I wanted to do theatre design. I used to go to the theatre as a kid, and at some point I thought, well, somebody's made that and somebody's created it, so maybe I could have a go at making it, and I could have a go at creating it. And I went to, just before uni, I went to the V&A Museum, and they had an exhibition called Collaborators, and I had a look round and I saw these tiny model boxes, and this was before I knew what a model box was, and I thought, oh, wow, look at all these tiny little worlds. And then when I went to uni, I had this fantastic opportunity where I actually was able to work with SBTD, the Society of British Theatre Designers, on their next exhibition. They had done the exhibition beforehand, and I've got the book I've got the catalogue from the exhibition, and there are so many inspirational pieces in here, and you just have to look at some of these images. So whilst I was working on it, I got to see the work of so many designers, and it was really, really inspiring. And then when I started, you kind of get the bug, you get the theatre bug when you start making some work here. When you start making, you want to carry on, and when you start making work with so many creative people, you want to carry on working with those creative people because you get in the flow. Oh, what are the highs and lows of being a designer? Good question, Izzy. I would say the highs are you get the people you work with and the people you meet. You get to meet some absolutely fantastic and really interesting people. The lows of being designer, I would say I find myself carrying a lot of bags all the time. That is a low. Probably need a suitcase on wheels most of the time. You end up carrying bags and bags full of props and costumes and things to try on, and you're shopping for things, which is really, really great, but it gives your arms a workout. And I think you can see some of my work. My website is going through a complete overhaul at the moment. That is how I'm going to be using my lockdown period. I'm gonna redo it because it really needs an update. But I'm gonna be putting some more stuff on my Instagram page. It's called Connie Burley Designs, so you can see some of my work there. It's got some paintings on it at the moment. When I'm not doing theatre design contracts, I paint, which I absolutely love. I love the medium of painting, and when I was starting out, as soon as I graduated uni, I started doing scenic art as a way in, and then things picked up from there. So any more questions? Any more questions, please throw them my way and I will answer them. But thank you so much for joining me on my first live Facebook video ever. Sorry if I've rambled a little bit, but I hope it's been interesting and worthwhile, and I hope you all stay safe and well in this strange time. Next week, or no, tomorrow, there's another artist joining Artcore for an artist takeover. So check out Artcore's Facebook page at 4 p.m. for the next artist takeover. Thank you so much. Take care.